Hello, and thank you for joining us. That's right, this is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. And today we're going to be going over something you've heard before. I think Nancy Pelosi will remember this. We have to pass the bill to see what's in it. And that's what's been going on today. As Congress is taking a bow because of the great job that they have done finally passing the COVID relief, or rather the second COVID relief bill at the end of the year, we looked at the appropriations bill that they finally are passing and looking at what's really in this. Because the news media is very focused on the idea that this is the $900 billion COVID relief bill, that this is something that's going to be so massively important for the public. But one of the things that we wanted to look at is, what else did they pass? What else is going on in our government? Now, we earlier today had a video, which you may have seen, and we were talking about something that's very important. We were looking at what's going on with our economy. I mean, it's one of the most important things we can talk about. And we know that 1 in 5 business owners have been anticipating that they were going to be out of business by the end of the year, according to the National Federation of Independent Business. And we know that since August, Black small business owners have had 41% more of a hard time, or 41% of them have had harder times than any other businesses out there. This has been a very devastating time. We know that there have been closings somewhere in the neighborhood of between 800 and 1,500 businesses closing per day for this year of 2020. It is an incredible amount of loss of businesses. We know that because of this, we have seen that nearly half of the small Black businesses have been wiped out, that they're just gone. And in each and every one of these cases, because the businesses are gone forever, we're seeing this have an impact on both the employment rate, or the unemployment rate, I should say, and the amount of time people are not in work. We're already reaching over 27 weeks, and there is no end in sight in the near term. In fact, we know that this is a growing problem, that looking at the number of people who have permanently lost their jobs, many in these cases is because their business no longer exists for them to work at. That number is increasing dramatically, even as the number of people who are getting back into the workforce is decreasing, as we can see from this graph as found through the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So that brings us to an interesting question. As the debt is skyrocketing and about to take off even further, we're looking at massive amounts of spending, not just $6.7 billion, but once this is done, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 7.9, possibly $8.1 billion will be spent in this year. It is a huge, huge number. And as we showed earlier, this is why Senator Rand Paul stood up in front of the Senate and said, "We can't do this. We can't afford this. This is going to destroy our country, and it's not dealing with the actual problem, which is that our businesses are not open because of governors like Governor Andrew Cuomo, who wakes up every day and makes a brand new rule about what business can be open or can't be open, what times they can be open. It's just insane. You know, in one zip code, taking directly and quoting, paraphrasing from Senator Rand Paul, you could have a business in one zip code that has one set of regulations against it, and then you go across the street in another zip code, and it has an entirely different time. Different times for those businesses to be open, different businesses that are allowed to be open. This is devastating New York. We know that the restaurant industry, bars, gyms, movie theaters, just a huge list of industries that are being devastated. And it may even get worse, considering that Governor Andrew Cuomo has said that he is considering another lockdown. That we have heard from the COVID advisor for Joe Biden that he is looking for a 6-week national lockdown. And we know that in Europe and in Britain right now, they are going through lockdowns so severe that people are not allowed to even meet or be in the same room as individuals that are not in their household already. This is crazy. And this is going to be massive. So when we hear that Congress has finally gotten their act together, they have finally given up the ghost of the politics that they've been playing to try and get an election win, that they finally move forward to decide to help the American people at extreme cost rather than just opening up the nation. Well, what else did they do at the same time? Because Congress is known for one thing, and that is they love their pork barrel spending. They love slipping things in. And the news media is ever so helpful in not telling the American public what else is going on, what else just happened. And we decided to spend the last couple of hours looking through, trying to find out, well, what else did happen? Because they passed the bill. Now we need to know what's in there. What are we getting for our dollars, our taxes, our economy being crushed? What are we actually getting? So it's a good question. Now, we went through, and I got to tell you, the appropriation bills are some of the worst written bills ever. They are almost indecipherable in trying to work through them. But we were able to look through, and we were looking at the NPR version because the bill was not presented to the public ahead of time. It was not printed. It was not available to be read and seen by the general public. But today, we did get that about 3 hours ago. And what we found is that in the bill, they spent a lot of time to work out horse racing integrity, because that's important. In the middle of a COVID crisis, we need to have horse racing integrity, and who knows how much that's going to cost us because it isn't mentioned in the appropriations bill. We also see that one of the other things they're looking to do is putting together a study, and there is nothing better for spending money and better for taking up the time of Congress than having a study to tell you whether or not you can do something. And in this case, there is a study for to determine if there should be a park created for in reference to the Springfield race riot, which is the 1908 Springfield race riot, which is with Native American Indians. My answer on that is real simple. If the Native American Indian tribes want to have a national park made to commemorate and to remember the race riot that happened in 1908, do it. Why do we need a study for this? I don't understand it. It's either you make the park or you don't make the park. You don't need a study to tell you whether or not you should make the park. If you want to make this something that people will remember forever, you do it. You don't need a study to tell you whether you should or shouldn't do that. I don't understand this. Well, let's keep going. There's also the assessment for the student loan repayment benefits. Now, this is important. Paying off student loan debt is the newest gimmick coming out from the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and progressive wing of the Democratic Party. That's their big selling feature. But it seems they have inspired the intelligence community, something that I'm pretty sure Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they really weren't looking to try and motivate the intelligence community, but they have, which is kind of funny. And now we see that the in the appropriations bill, the assessment for the demand for a student loan repayment program. Well, essentially, what's going to happen is the National Director of Intelligence is being told that he has to figure out a way who still has loans. And anyone who has loans, they're going to figure out if they can pay off those loans as a work exchange. So you work for national intelligence for X number of years, and all of your student loans go away. Given that idea, is that the worst? I mean, if we were going to wipe out the loans, not just wipe them out, but we're getting something for it, that would actually kind of make sense. If we wanted to, if Joe Biden and the progressives were saying, oh, you don't have to pay back your student loans, you just have to work for the public for 5 or 10 years, whatever that number may be, then that actually would make some kind of sense, because the public would be getting something for that rather than just wiping out the debt because they're entitled. I don't understand. It's why does that burden, that tax burden, have to be put on the American people with no benefit to the American people? And when I say that, yes, students won't have that, which means generally, according to the University of Chicago, that means rich white students, college students who have some of the best careers, they're getting this. They're getting the best benefit of this. Really, it's helping them. It's not helping poor people. But you know what? If you are getting your degree and you're getting your student loans wiped out and you have to serve in the local soup kitchen, if you have to go and serve in local government, if you have to have a job that serves the public, then the poor are going to get something out of it. Maybe not only should the intelligence community for the United States government, maybe all of the students should be learning this. Maybe Joe Biden should take a clue and learn from this. So that one's kind of interesting. So we have a bunch of these bills that we have no idea really what they're going to cost. Another great one that really caught my attention is the Climate Security Advisory Council, which is in the bill. And who knows what that's supposed to be? The Director of National Intelligence is not only going to be doing a study, as I just mentioned, trying to figure out how to repay student loans, but also they're going to find out if they will make a committee similar to the Climate Security Council. What's that going to cost? And I have no idea. It doesn't make sense. Why do you have to do a study to figure out if an advisory council worked or not? If they made good breakthroughs, if they did their job, if it was effective, then you copy it. If it didn't, you don't need to study it. You just don't do it. Why is the government wasting money on this? And again, who knows how much money is going to be spent on these studies? We have no idea. We have no idea how much money is going to be spent in putting together a horse racing integrity and safety. It just doesn't make sense. We have no idea how much money is going to be spent to figure out whether or not they should open up a national park about the Springfield race riot. These are simple things. We have no idea how much money is going to be spent to figure out if they can actually afford to repay the student loans for individuals working in our intelligence community as a retention so they stick with the job. Why do we need to do studies on this? Either you do it or you don't. It's either worth it or it's not. How much money are we going to spend to figure out if we should be able to do this or not? Our government's so backward sometimes. So very, very backward sometimes. It just doesn't make sense. We spend money on a study to figure out if we should do something. Why? Well, it gets worse. It gets worse because one of the big things we wanted to figure out is we have people in need. So besides wasting unknown amounts of money and unknown amounts of resources and time on these other programs that I've just highlighted that we have no idea what's going on or what it entails, one thing we do know in the appropriations bill, some of the things we do know is something we found as we were looking for other more specific details. We ran into this wonderful gem. The Marine Mammal Commission, which has necessary expenses of $3,769,000 for marine mammal. Excuse me. I don't know how many marine mammals are out there voting. Dolphins. We're talking about dolphins. Really, we're talking about dolphins and whales. How many dolphins and whales are voting? How many dolphins and whales are out of work? Let's think about that for a second. And we're spending $3,769,000 a year in our taxes for Marine Mammal Commission, whatever that's supposed to be doing, whatever benefit that provides to the United States, which I don't really understand. We're also looking at something that's a little more serious and a lot more vague, if you could believe it or not, is we're paying Pakistan $25 million, $15 million to make democracy available and improve democracy in Pakistan. $15 million for that. We're spending $10 million on gender programs. Okay. $10 million on gender. What is a gender program? Really? I want to hear someone in Congress explain this. Anthony Brindisi, you currently are the representative for the New York 22nd District. What is gender programs in Pakistan? And why are we paying for it? Seriously, I want to know this. I want to hear Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, any of the progressives out there. What is a gender program, and why are we Americans paying for that gender program, whatever that is, in Pakistan? What has that got to do with the American public? I can understand the $15 million for improving democracy around the world. Fine. Is it a lot? Maybe, maybe not. We can improve democracy around the world, and if we're spending $15 million on that, okay, I can get that. Why are we spending $10 million on gender programs, which is as vague as you can possibly make it, which has no purpose that I can understand because I have no idea what it is? And we're spending $10 million on that in a foreign country. No wonder Senator Rand Paul was so upset about our spending overseas. Well, it gets worse. It gets way, way worse. You know, did you know that the United States government, based on this appropriations bill, snuck on in there something that most people didn't notice, is that we are paying the government of Jordan $845,100,000. I mean, it's right here, right in front of you. Jordan, of the funds appropriated by this act, not less than $1.6 billion shall be made available for the assistance of Jordan, of which not less than $845,100,000 shall be made available for the budget support for the government of Jordan. That is huge. That is a huge amount of money. Why are we paying for the country of Jordan, for their government to run? Almost $1 billion. This is a ridiculous amount of money. I don't understand that. We are spending nearly $1 billion for Jordan to have a government that runs. You know, I added up the numbers and we did the math here. And we found out that if you were to add up the marine mammals, the $10 million for gender programs in Pakistan, and the $845 million for Jordan, just those three items alone. Did you know, and I want to make sure you understand it and clear, I'm assuming, I'm going by Forbes, there's nothing that shows, I couldn't find anything that says how much do American small businesses make every year. The closest thing that we could figure out is that it's somewhere around $475,000 a year in 2018 for small businesses, and that there are loans out, and that for women, the average loan for their small business is about $48,000. So going with those numbers, going with the numbers that the average American small business, it has total revenues of about $475,000, and that loans are outstanding around the range of about $50,000. We said, if you were to add up all the money the United States is spending on marine mammals, the $10 million that we're spending on some kind of gender program in Pakistan, and the money that we are paying to keep the government of Jordan operational, and, you know, they have oil money, right? They're not poor. Well, that's 855,869,000, which would work out to 1,801 businesses that would be completely paid in full. At $475,000 a year, we could pay the revenues, total revenues for 1,801 businesses completely. Or we could completely pay off 18,010 of the business loans of small business owners around the nation. And I have to believe that either one of those actions would be absolutely instrumental in helping change this graph, that the permanent job losers would stop growing because the businesses that they work at would continue to exist at this moment. 18,000 businesses would be secure without any business loans, able to operate better. 1,801 of those businesses we could pay off completely. We could fund them 100%. Imagine if we split the numbers, and even if we paid each business $100,000, 1/4 that amount, we paid $100,000 of their revenues. Instead of giving the money overseas and wasting it, we would be able to have somewhere around over 5,000 businesses in America would be more flush and more capable of being able to operate today than yesterday. That seems to make a lot more sense to me. Why are we wasting money? This is what was in the bill that got passed. Everyone's focused on what happened with getting a second checkout, that American's going to get $600. What about our businesses that keep people working, that keeps our economy afloat, that helps to pay the taxes to pay for the $600 check that we're sending out to everybody? You know, and there's one other thing that we found when we were looking this through. And it's amazing the things you find when you look at the actual bills and look at what is actually being said in them. As hard as that can be sometimes, and with appropriation bills, incredibly hard. When we looked in there, now everyone may remember the Benghazi debacle, the insanity, the heartbreaking Benghazi attacks, where Americans and one of our ambassadors were killed. And because of that, there was an investigation that was done, and probably needs to be done again, where we found great amounts of fault, in particular with Hillary Clinton. And we've determined that we need to make changes to our embassy security, that we had to make sure that our embassies were protected, that our workers and everyone in there would be able to be okay. And yet, it hasn't been done. According to the appropriations bill that is just passed, it is in the bill, and we can now see what it says. It says, in reference to the embassy security, funds appropriated under the headings, quote, diplomatic programs, end quote, including for worldwide security protection, embassy security, construction and maintenance, and emergencies in diplomatic and consular service in this act may be transferred to and merged with funds appropriated under such headings if the Secretary of State determines and reports to the committees on appropriations that to do so is necessary to implement the recommendations of the Benghazi Accountability Review Board for emergency evacuations. Let me explain what that just said. It sounds like gobbledygook. It's real simple. The Secretary of State can move money so that the embassies can actually build up the security protocols, the evacuation protocols, the absolute necessary needs of everyone serving in embassies across the world, especially in hot zones, so that they can actually get them safe. He's entitled to use the money to do that. What have we been doing for years now? What hasn't he done with this? That was 2011. This is 2020. It's 9 years later, and we haven't spent the money. We haven't put together the evacuation protocols. We don't have emergency evacuation protocols. And I hate to say this publicly, but it's already a public document, and places like Iran are reading this already. They are aware of this. They read this just like I did. And so they know what we know is that we don't have these things done in 9 years. Our government is so damn dysfunctional. So what we did is we wanted to see what's in the bill. Now, this is just one person spending a couple of hours scanning through the appropriations bill. And while everyone is focused on talking about a $600 check that's going to help to increase the national debt massively, and yet doesn't resolve the problems of why businesses are closing, why the unemployment rate is climbing. While we're seeing that happen, we need to also understand our government is taking money that could be used to help support women-owned businesses, black-owned businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses, white-owned businesses, American small business, our economy, our lifeblood of our economy. Some 70% of all jobs come from these small businesses. We could be taking care of that, but instead, what we're seeing is they're giving the money to places like Jordan. They're spending the money on absolutely vague programs in Pakistan. Come on, we can do better than that, America. And we really need to hold accountable our senators and our representatives in the House, in Congress, and have them explain to us, why do we need to pay to run the government of Jordan? Why do we need to pay for some gender program that has no explanation in Pakistan? Why should we care? Why should we be spending that money when we have people in America right now that have absolutely great need, like the people who may get evicted at the end of January, at the beginning of February, because they no longer have a job to go to because the job got shut down because Governor Cuomo woke up this morning and decided to say that COVID is active after 10 o'clock, but not before that. COVID will attack you if you're standing up, but not if you're sitting down. It will attack you if you haven't eaten a meal. It makes no sense. It's frustrating. We need to start paying attention to this stuff, America. These are problems. And these are problems that are compounding. And as we keep doing the wrong thing, which are lockdowns, which we know the World Health Organization has already told us is the worst thing we could possibly do. It is the last thing we should ever do. And as we continue to keep doing the thing that we shouldn't be doing and hurting our country, we should stop wasting money, because we are wasting a lot of money. But that's what I think. That's what we believe, and that's what we found when we looked in at the bill, the appropriations bill. You'll see links to everything that we've been discussing so that you can review it for yourself and come up with your own description. By the way, it is 5,593 pages long. The pages on the bill do not match up to the number of pages it actually is. So just keeping that in mind. So when you go through it, it's going to be a little tiring. But folks, I hope you're going to have a great day. I hope we can make our elected officials more responsive, and hopefully someone will give us an answer, although I just don't really think so. But I look forward to seeing you on Sunday on our live stream at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are more than welcome, everyone around the world, to join us on that. As well, if you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe, give us a like, because it really helps us to get the word out to more and more people to let them know what's actually going on in our government. With that said, I hope you have a great evening.